Hey everyone who is joining us. My name is Nikita. Today I'm in company with fabulous Evin McMullen from Disco.xyz. For those who don't know what is this space about and what we're doing here, as a Web3 writer for Forbes and space speaker, I'm connecting with A-level players from all around the world to actually understand at which stage of Web3 development, blockchain are we right now, and what is the future for it. So today's topic of our discussion will be digital identity, the ways to protect what is yours, the ways to show the world who you really are on the blockchain, what is the current state, what is the future vision perspective for it, some technical aspects, and just to give some quick perspective for people, how did we met? Actually, I watched Evan's podcast, Bankless, a week ago. She was talking together with Vitalik about soulbound tokens, about digital identity, VCs and base, how to possess yourself, how to control your data on the blockchain. And I was really happy to hear all these new insights, some technical aspects of it that I have never heard, never thought about before. And I saw that, you know what, I'm gonna just write an appreciation message on Twitter and check it out, whether there is a chance to somehow meet her. And here, after 1 week, we're having this interview. I'm extremely happy about it. Evan, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself. Please introduce your company, Disco.xyz, and let's start the disco.
All right, let's party. Thank you so much for having me, and GM, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation today. So at Disco, we are building your identity for the metaverse, the data backpacks that you need to carry around the information that makes you, you. So we are really excited to celebrate you as the shining center of the party, reflecting your data and your identity to the world how you decide, not how Mark Zuckerberg has decided to present you. So from a technical perspective, what we make possible is your ownership of private data written about you, signed by other people, signed by yourself, owned and controlled in the same way that you can own and control your tokens today. So there are a number of technical and social evolutions that have led to this moment where we are reaching a ceiling of utility and fun in what we can do in Web3. So it's a very exciting time to be building tools that everyone can access, that you don't need KYC or fiat on-ramps to play with, so that we can show the world that the power of Web3 beyond the chain has an incredible abundance of use cases and value that we can unlock right now.
Yeah, I mean, all of this sounds amazing. Perhaps half of it or even more of it sounds like crazy, something new to people here in the space. But I mean, the Web3 space is still early. We're just rolling these things. And something that I found really interesting, once again, coming how I met you, through Vitalik's report about soulbound tokens, and that is something actually I've been consulting some of recruitment companies, for example, here in the Baltics. I'm from Latvia. When producing to them these different ideas of how their VCs data about recruiters, about clients, etc., can be stored, how to possess it, etc. And I have never thought that it might have some name. I have never thought that it will start being a reality that soon. And just last month in May, Vitalik posted this 50+ page report about soulbound tokens. The idea that comes from World of Warcraft games, where basically whenever you kill your enemy, you get some loot, you get some weapon, you get some artifacts, etc. They belong to you for the end of the game. You cannot transfer them, you cannot sell them. So usually it's something unique, it's something really special. And the interesting aspect of it is that your identity is also something unique, something special. You graduating from university, you finishing 10 years working at Apple or whatsoever, but it's a bit different aspect of from what you do at Disco.xyz. So let all of us know how does this soulbound tokens actually differ, this on-chain identity differs from off-chain identity in your perspective?
So on-chain identity today is comprised of all of the on-chain activities that we do. Right now, the kinds of coordination games that we can play largely include pooling capital and spending it together. So that represents a pretty small fraction of your whole identity as a person, your financial public data, right? You are more than the contents of your wallet. You are a whole person who has hobbies and friends, experiences, preferences, coffee orders, the kinds of people you like to date. And all of that information is not necessarily appropriate or, quite frankly, relevant for the whole world and everyone on Earth and space for all time to need access to 24/7. In fact, prioritizing availability of data to feed our apps is a very Web2 mindset that we can make possible in Web3 for certain kinds of capabilities. But Ethereum does not have an abstraction layer. We have the opportunity to be very mindful and careful about how we design an identity system in the future of our metaverse. So to address something that you mentioned earlier, that this is just becoming a topic of conversation, I think it's exciting that now a broader community of folks are paying attention, but we are fortunate that there's over a decade, in fact, over 17 years of this work has been leading up to this moment. In 2015 to 2018, many folks were experimenting with on-chain attestations, where you would put on a personal achievement on a blockchain. And fortunately, many of those researchers determined that these were not appropriate for human society, that they were indeed harmful and introduced risk, introduced bias in a way that was damaging to their users. So early experiments helped us to explore what was possible, putting personal attestations on chain. And we learned as an industry, including hundreds of teams from all over the world over many years working in collaboration, that we could find a better, more interoperable, cheaper, faster way for human beings to build their reputations and carry them with them from Web2 to Web3 and from one Web3 app to another. So the verifiable credential specification has actually been around in various forms for a number of years. So in years past, 2016, 2017, 2018, projects like one that used to be called Uport actually allowed users to obtain verifiable credentials as proofs of their government identity in the city of Zug, Switzerland. They could access government services. They were able to even rent bicycles with those proofs, all using their public identifiers and totally off the blockchain. Similarly, they were able to use proto-verifiable credentials before the standards we have today to gate access to the heavy machinery repair yard at the Swiss National Railway, so we can gate both physical and digital access. Additionally, the ETH Denver 2019 conference, where Vitalik himself used verifiable credentials to enter the space, was actually a really wonderful example about how these primitives can be well suited to physical gatherings in person. So we have a really rich history of ways that these credentials are already in place. The Verifiable Credentials Working Group and Task Force with the Decentralized Identity Foundation is one of the most robust. And as I mentioned in that interview with Vitalik, universities around the world are already investing in issuing verifiable credentials for diplomas and academic achievements of all kinds, because they have already determined through thorough research over many years that these are the optimal solution for their students. So I think it's a really exciting moment for us to pause and realize that the world is larger than Ethereum, and that there are decades of research and insights and many experts upon whose shoulders we can build. So I also mentioned in that conversation in 2005, Kim Cameron, a leader in the self-sovereign identity and self-custody space, defined the laws of identity, these sort of pillars or rules that we might follow to ensure an identity system does not bring harm to its users. So I think that I get concerned when new systems that violate these pillars are proposed because we know that these traits or capabilities can bring harm and risk to users. So I think we're in a really exciting moment where we can pause as a community and decide with our values, what kind of coordination games are we going to make possible for our human community? Here in the United States in the 1700s, we decided we were going to stop burning witches and issuing scarlet letters, and that we would adopt due process of law with ample opportunity for appeal, so that the burden of proof for infraction was upon the accuser and not the accused. There are many different systems of justice around the world, of course, all of them imperfect, deeply flawed in their own ways as a reflection of the bias of their creators. And so as we create reputation and identity systems, I think we must be mindful, studious, and careful about the way that we select and modify that which is already available to us, and the way that we should deliberately be as informed as possible, as clear as possible on the consequences of what we are proposing before we suggest that they should be built. And that includes acknowledging that, to the extent that the world is larger than Ethereum, as long as Ethereum is not the only API upon which humanity resides, how might we create systems of identity that are as inclusive as possible so that we can build the largest table possible and not create a stratified or bifurcated society where privacy or rights, participation, and identity are only the privilege of those with properly funded wallets.
Yeah, I mean, I should absolutely acknowledge the fact how energized are you when talking about this thing. And I understand that you're spending like 24 hours per day talking, thinking, writing about privacy, about digital identity, and perhaps at certain point of moment you're just fed up with some of this stuff. But right now, talking to you, I understand that it never stops. You are always there. You're always for innovative future. You are here to make it happen. And wow, this is amazing. So huge props to you. Absolutely. You mentioned terms faster and cheaper when referring to your privacy, digital identity. Can you please elaborate what are the current issues regarding the speed, regarding the costs that we're having right now, and how are you planning to solve those?
So you've highlighted a really wonderful benefit and drawback of our public ledgers. Public blockchains in general, are outstanding timepieces. They are the Rolex, the public Rolex of the future. They provide timestamps with incredible accuracy, aside from the odd DDoS attack for alt L1s, but that's not what we're talking about. Usually, they provide profoundly useful and globally accessible timestamps. But that factor, that capability means that they are on a block schedule, not on your schedule as a user. So this creates perhaps inconsistencies, some challenges, some expense when it comes to asking the network to document things for us. When we put things on the public chain, we are beholden to not only the pace, but also the price of how miners are keeping this network alive. And so what this means for us as human users is that if we want to participate in activities on our own schedule, if we do not want to or do not require the global public availability of publishing data to all of these nodes in perpetuity, then how might we have a more lightweight form of communication? When I have data that is relevant only to me or to a small group of other parties, how can I move that in a manner that doesn't ask all of these other nodes to document it when I know that there is not that kind of audience for that information? Or indeed, it needs to change or evolve like me because I'm a person, so I need it in a more flexible form. And so the benefit of communicating with an API versus a blockchain is that an API has a different speed, a different set of constraints that determine the way that data might pass through it versus on a public blockchain. So if we are moving off-chain data, if we're moving files between our public keys, instead of using a blockchain and bridges to move data between those keys, we can move at a different pace and we can have different constraints. Now, of course, everything has a cost. Data has a cost. Storing that data, generating that data has a marginal cost. But those costs are, in my estimation, significantly less than the cost of, sending a Bored Ape from one wallet to another on layer 1 Ethereum. Indeed, we could issue a billion verifiable credentials for the cost of a single transaction on layer 1 ETH. And so our ability to generate independently verifiable data that can be owned and controlled by users in a self-custodied manner that is equivalent to many of the capabilities we can enjoy on chain, but persists in privacy and flexibility of how it might be shared, I think that's a really exciting opportunity for us to explore because it means that we need not be limited only to the timestamps and the constraints of a blockchain to express ourselves in Web3, but rather that form of expression can be quite multifaceted and can take so many different kinds of composable forms if we use a much more flexible data structure.
Sounds really fair to me. The other questions that I have just pop up while you were speaking, how to make sure that it is as secured as possible. There is no data leak, I don't know, no rug pulls from any other projects who will be entering the space as this data privacy providers or whatsoever. How to make sure that right from the beginning, we're working with the right providers, with the right industry leaders. They're storing our data safely. I don't know if you've been following the latest, not trends, but I would say news regarding cryptocurrency, one project going down after another, how to make sure that the data is actually stored, whether we are talking about some on-chain, off-chain, whether we're talking cooperating with some specific decentralized project, that it will be stored for the lifetime and it can be secured. What are some of the things that we need to think about there, and what are some of the things that you will need to do to make sure that it's fully secured?
That's an outstanding question. How do we ensure the safety of our data to the best of our ability with the tools that we have? So one approach, one value set that is integral to a secure identity system is minimum disclosure. Minimum disclosure means we share our private data with the minimum number of parties required in order to accomplish our goals. If we put our data on a blockchain, one might consider that to be maximum disclosure. How might I disclose a piece of information to the maximum number of parties possible? So if we want to achieve privacy and security of data that is not appropriate for everyone in the world to know, minimum disclosure is a design principle that we can use to maintain that constraint. Now, within the context of minimum disclosure, we can also think about how are we storing that data? Where are we storing it? How are we maintaining it? So of course, we want to make sure that that data is protected cryptographically. So we want to encrypt it. We don't want to be storing that in clear or plain text in a manner that might be more easily interrupted, more easily rug pulled, as you suggest. So we can encrypt that data. But now that it's encrypted, how might we even secure it more from a physical perspective? So decentralized storage under the ownership and control of the subject of that data, the person about whom it is written, is another really exciting opportunity. So if we take that data and we break it up, we make sure that it is not centrally stored in a manner that has a single point of failure, then the encryption can be compounded with physical security for decentrally storing that data, so that it might be logically centralized, can be sort of logically called upon by the user, but is physically decentralized in the places where those credentials go to sleep at night. And so by maintaining the sort of principles of minimum disclosure, by leveraging encryption, by leveraging the decentralization and security that we can achieve with decentralized networks of off-chain private storage or off-chain encrypted storage that limit or inhibit the extent to which folks can even physically find that data, let alone interface with its encrypted contents. This is a set of design principles that, that can provide us with a remarkable amount of assurance and do not rely only upon time-based privacy methods in order to secure our data. So we want to make sure that for the pieces of ourselves that are most fundamentally crucial to our existence, how do we put as many layers of safety between ourselves and dystopia as we can while we are experimenting with a net new environment and our consequences can resound through the ages?
Does all of it mean that you are actually enemies with soulbound tokens, or you somehow complement each other? Because from my perspective, and I'm looking for the next like 5-10 years when the technology will start evolving, where this mass adoption in a certain way comes, that both of them will have some place to be in the space, especially taking into account this NFT boom in the recent years. NFT became the word of the year in 2021. So basically, everyone is using ETH, everyone is using OpenSea, everyone is flexing with his or her NFTs, etc. Just for me, by using this technology, it's a bit more easier to use the soulbound tokens whenever they come, because I already understand how the concept works. So what you are offering, it's a bit perhaps more secure, perhaps easier, more efficient aspect, but there might be the things that not everyone, not all the masses of people in the blockchain will want to use it at first, because they already get used to NFT. So do you believe that both of these technologies will exist, or are you somehow enemies to one another, and you're going to fight for this place in the Web3 space?
I think the concept of fighting over implementation details is childish. I adore Vitalik and I love technical conjectures. In fact, I love NFTs so much that I have ERC 721 tattooed on the back of my neck. I am committed to immutability, I think, more than most. And so the opportunity we have here is to think about what problem are we trying to solve, and then what tools and capabilities are best suited to addressing that problem. We have a unique opportunity to design for the human users, not the conjectures or capabilities of what one could do with the protocol. Just because we could does not mean we should. And so in this moment of decision making, I think we can explore what are the use cases we're trying to address here, and then we should choose as a community those solutions that are uniquely best suited.
I should say I really like your reply, because whenever people are arguing between different, I don't know, contract standards, between the different aspects of the space, I do believe that we're so early that everything that complements to the space, not that harms it, is actually beneficial. It doesn't matter whether it's gonna stay there for 10 years, 20 years, or it's gonna be adjusted 10 times before having this final form. I really like the fact about your tattoos, about your tattoo. Actually, I'm planning to have an interview with William Entrekin. He's full decent. He's one of 3, if I'm not mistaken, creators of ERC 721. So he's basically the guy, let's put it simply, who almost created NFTs, or basically the standard on which NFT are based on. I like those facts about you. I hope it will be also interesting for readers and listeners to actually find it out. The questions that I have for you, and I do believe that is the biggest question that everyone might have. Once again, we're extremely early in the space. All these different technologies are coming, leaving, coming in a different ways, living in a different ways, etc. But some fundamentals are already there. So my question to you would be as follows. What are some of these big events, big milestones that need to happen in the traditional business in Web2 space, perhaps, for you to actually understand that digital identity is here to stay in this form? So we have reached this top of digital identity, maybe not in the mass adoption aspect of the question, but in human understanding, in development of technology. Is it some kind of legislation, some kind of laws that need to be passed there, maybe 10 different laws that need to be passed there? Is it some certain period of time where crypto becomes, like crypto and the whole Web3 space becomes less volatile? What is your take? about this?
I think that you've brought up a few very interesting points, that there are a number of forces that influence the extent to which digital identity can have a role and can influence our experiences as we build this metaverse, both digital and physical. So from a regulatory perspective, the extent to which governments are protecting the citizens' rights around their data is significantly influencing prioritization for enterprises. Laws like GDPR and CCPA are encouraging businesses to rethink their data aggregation strategies and the extent to which they maintain centralized databases of user personally identifiable information. Businesses are actually incentivized to allow users to maintain their own data, to be able to bring it to their interactions and take it with them when they go, because it means the cost of compliance would diminish for them significantly, as well as storing that data, ensuring it, protecting it from hacks, et cetera. Beyond that, I think some technical updates have meaningfully changed the landscape that we exist in Web3. EIP 712 last fall, I believe, updated sign type data to the extent that now we can enjoy our existing Web3 wallets and sign off-chain data with those very same keys. It used to be back in the day that you needed to have a separate native mobile wallet or browser app or browser extension in order to be able to maintain keys to sign off-chain data. But now we've got one set of keys to the house and the Lambo, meaning off-chain and on-chain data with a single set of keys. And so now with these updated capabilities, we can, to your point, meet people where they are. We can use the user journeys we already have. We can enjoy more capabilities with our MetaMask instead of building only within the constraints of what's possible. We can invite users to have some new features and new superpowers with their keys. I also think that there's an opportunity in our Web3 community to think about what are the other capabilities that we want to build. We're reaching a ceiling of fun and utility in the DAO space and in Web3 in general, in terms of what we can do by pushing money back and forth one another over rent-seeking protocols with our beloved JPEGs. So if we want to coordinate more interesting games together, we're going to need more information about one another. If our DAO wants to not have an unfettered secondary market for membership, we don't want to allow people to buy their way into governance, we are going to need some form of proving our non-financial traits. And to the extent that our traits change over time, because we are not fixed public things like tokens, we are humans, we need data structures that are similarly flexible. You over time gain new skills, you join new ecosystems, but parts of you also fall away and evolve and change. And it is our ability to change as humans that is fundamental to preserve in this new construct. We do not want to build a surveillance apparatus that forces us to bear the sins and challenges of our past in every interaction on into the future.
That's brilliant. I mean, talking about opportunities, and I guess that is my last question for today. What is the future for digital identity? So for your data privacy, what comes next? Because when learning more about you, about Disco.xyz, any line I read on your web page, I was actually rethinking my LinkedIn profile. Like basically right now I have all my background, starting from school, universities, business background, achievements, volunteer experience, everything on LinkedIn. But you never know whether it's true or not. Some people can just add, whether it's an extra week, whether it's an extra testimonial or whatsoever. So basically, I am a strong believer that by having this data collected, data stored in the right way, you make the space, the whole space, more trustworthy, more secured. So I would like to hear from you what actually comes next. Maybe there is something that you're already working on and you can give us some sneak peek. Maybe you can share some of your ideal case scenario, but what comes next?
So first we had finance, next we have fun. So being able to coordinate ourselves around more interesting problems than treasury allocation, being able to assign roles in our DAOs that reflect the kinds of contributions and participation that we have, as well as being able to generate more emergent and whimsical use cases that don't have the cost and complexity and publicity of experimenting on-chain in an immutable way. So I'm really excited about the exploration of DAOs to build membership in good standing and flexible membership, as well as flexible forms of documenting those kinds of contributions in a new way. I also think that we have a really cool opportunity for interoperability. We in Web3 have been tribal for many years, but now we have an opportunity to work together using non-financial data at the speed of an API instead of building bridges that require us to inherently be financial in those interactions. I am the same person who owns my Bitcoin wallet and owns my Ethereum wallet and interacts with my Tezos wallet, and I should be able to bring my whole self from place to place without having to pay to move my thoughts and my experiences from one context to the next.
I mean, that sounds amazing. Once again, for some people, it might sound crazy, something unrealistic. For those who are longer in this space, for those who are actually diving deeper into what comes next, for those who believe in this space, it sounds as a norms that will come there in a year, in 5, in 10, but it will be there. And it's an absolute pleasure to see that you're already working on it. I'm extremely glad to have you today here with me. I hope that the audience also likes what we have discussed about digital identity, your data privacy. You gave a lot of thoughts to think about later on. You gave a lot of interesting insights for people to analyze. I absolutely appreciate every single minute chatting to you. You are an extremely positive person, and it's also something unique in the space where everyone is trying to get the best result for themselves without thinking about other people. From your energy, from your smile, and you're smiling right now, I can see that you are here to actually educate people, to help people. It's not like some short-term project for you, some fun. That is something that you're devoting all your life, and you're succeeding in it. And I'm extremely interested to see what comes next. I hope that we can meet with you sometime later on this year when there are some new updates in the industry, in your company. I'll just would love to give you a couple of last words so that you can say whatever is left. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. I feel fortunate to be in a position to join forces with Vitalik so we can battle Moloch together.
Yeah, this is brilliant. That's what I'm talking about. Sharing is caring is the only way for us to bring this space to a whole new level. The only way for us to actually grow something big, something special, is to work all together. Once again, absolutely enjoyed talking to you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one. I'll see you in the metaverse.
Exactly.